Imagine waking up in a world plunged into total darkness. The sun, the star that lights and warms the Earth, has vanished without any warning. In an instant, Earth would be thrown into eternal darkness. No light, no heat, and without the gravitational force that keeps our planet in its stable orbit. The impact of this disappearance would be catastrophic, causing a series of chain reactions that would radically transform Earth and life as we know it. Throughout this video, we will explore in depth this apocalyptic scenario, understanding how the absence of the sun would affect the climate, marine life, vegetation, human survival, and even the social and psychological structure of humanity. The first consequence of the sun's disappearance would be the breakdown of the gravitational balance in the solar system. The sun is responsible for keeping Earth and all the other planets in orbit due to its immense gravitational force. Without this force, all celestial bodies, including Earth, would be thrown into interstellar space on uncontrolled trajectories. Earth, without the sun's gravitational pull to guide it, would become a rogue planet, wandering through the vacuum of space. This scenario would create a chaotic environment in the cosmos where planets, moons, and asteroids could collide with one another. Earth, now a solitary and aimless rock, would drift indefinitely through the universe without direction, growing further away from the light and heat that once sustained it. This wandering trajectory of Earth wouldn't just be a journey without a destination. It would be a voyage through an extremely hostile universe. Along its path, Earth could enter regions of space with high levels of cosmic radiation, as the sun's magnetic field, known as the heliosphere, would no longer protect our planet. The heliosphere acts as a shield against harmful radiation and particles coming from outside the solar system. Without this protection, Earth would be exposed to a constant bombardment of cosmic radiation, which would be devastating for any life still remaining on the planet. Cosmic radiation, in addition to damaging the DNA of living organisms, would also profoundly affect our technology, rendering satellites and other electronic devices that rely on stable magnetic fields useless. As Earth drifted through space, the climate would change dramatically. In the first few minutes after the sun's disappearance, Earth would still have light due to the fact that sunlight takes about 8 minutes to reach us. But after this brief period, complete darkness would set in. Without the sun's light and heat, Earth's temperature would begin to drop rapidly. Within a few hours, temperatures across the globe would plummet sharply. In a matter of days, temperatures would reach deadly levels. Hotter regions, such as the tropics, would become as cold as the Arctic, and regions that already experience harsh winters would become completely uninhabitable. Within a week, the global average temperature would fall to -100 minus 73 degrees Celsius, and the entire planet would be enveloped in ice. This freezing would profoundly affect marine ecosystems. The water in oceans, lakes, and rivers would begin to freeze from the top down, creating a crust of ice on the surface. The freezing of the oceans would quickly bring about the death of marine ecosystems that rely on sunlight. Phytoplankton, the base of the ocean's food chain, would cease to exist without light to perform photosynthesis. Without plankton, fish and other marine life would have nothing to eat, leading to a mass extinction of ocean species. Even creatures living in the deep sea, far from direct sunlight, would be impacted as the entire food chain collapsed. Moreover, Earth's surface would become unrecognizable. The lack of sunlight would prevent photosynthesis, leading to the death of all plants. Without plants, atmosphere would lose its ability to recycle carbon dioxide and produce oxygen. This would not only compromise human life, but also make the air more toxic over time. Tropical rainforests, savannas, and even the most productive agricultural areas in the world would turn into frozen deserts covered in ice and snow. The carbon cycle on Earth would be disrupted, resulting in a dangerous atmospheric imbalance, as there would be no vegetation absorb CO2. The absence of plants would also lead to the collapse of terrestrial fauna. Herbivores would starve, and carnivores that depend on them would soon follow. A mass extinction of animals would be inevitable. The absence of the sun would also cause the collapse of the energy sources that sustain modern civilization. Without sunlight, solar energy, one of the main sources of renewable energy, would cease to exist. Wind energy would also be affected, as without the uneven heating of the atmosphere caused by the sun, the winds that move wind turbines would stop. Energy production would collapse, and the world would be left without electricity. Power grids would fail, leaving millions without heating, clean water, and essential services. Food shortages would be immediate, as the agricultural sector, which is highly dependent on electricity, would come to a complete halt. The disappearance of the sun would bring chaos to human societies. The lack of energy and food would result in an unprecedented social crisis. Large, densely populated cities would collapse quickly, with people competing for limited resources. Hospitals and transportation systems would cease to function. Hunger and desperation would overtake populations, and governments around the world would lose control as their economies collapsed. Rural areas and isolated regions would also face crises, but might have a slightly better chance of temporary survival as they are less dependent on urban infrastructure. However, even these rural areas would succumb as Earth continued to freeze. In the face of this collapse, humanity's options for survival would be extremely limited. Some groups might attempt to seek refuge in underground or submarine shelters, where they could use geothermal heat to survive temporarily. But these shelters would only be temporary solutions. In the long run, the lack of food, water, and oxygen would make these shelters unviable. Additionally, the logistics of building and maintaining large underground or submarine shelters are complex and require a significant amount of resources, which would be nearly impossible to obtain amid the chaos. Even international cooperation and the use of advanced technologies wouldn't be enough to ensure humanity's survival for long. The mental health of the population would also be severely affected by the absence of the sun. The human body depends on sunlight to regulate its circadian rhythm, which controls sleep and wakefulness. Without the alternation between day and night, our bodies would completely lose track of time. This would result in a global crisis of insomnia and mental disorders. The lack of sunlight would also prevent the production of vitamin D, which is essential for bone health and immune function. In no time, the global population would face outbreaks of depression, anxiety, and physical diseases, further intensifying the already devastating crisis. Another important point is that over time, Earth's atmosphere would begin to dissipate into space. Without the sun's heat to maintain atmospheric pressure, Earth's air would slowly escape into space, leaving the planet vulnerable to cosmic radiation and meteor impacts. The cosmic radiation bombarding Earth would make life on the surface impossible. Without a protective atmosphere, the planet would become a cold, desolate rock, completely sterile. In the end, Earth would drift through space as a rogue planet, a world without a sun, frozen and lifeless, floating through the vacuum of the universe. Earth's fate would be uncertain. The chance of finding another hospitable star is almost non-existent. Even if Earth passed near another star, it would be unlikely that it would be captured by that star's gravity in a way that would restore life to the planet. Instead, Earth would continue its lonely journey, a frozen reminder of a world that once harbored life. This scenario makes us reflect on the vital importance of the sun for our existence. It is not just one star among billions, but the foundation that keeps everything in balance. The light and heat it provides sustain all life on Earth. Without the sun, the entire natural, social, and technological balance of Earth would collapse within days. What remains of civilization, life, and even the planet itself would be nothing but a memory.